Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast, the weekly Torah portion podcast where I read the weekly Torah portion and then provide my own interpretation of what I think it all means. This week's Torah portion is Balak, falling on the 14th of Tammuz, 5784, July 20th, 2024. Balak means Balak. It's the name of a person and is one of the main characters of this week's portion. For those who want to follow along in English, you can do so on Chabad.org. We'll be starting on chapter 22, verse 2 of Bamidbar for this week's portion. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, I am not a professional Torah scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Torah. Let's begin. Parashat Balak, first portion. Bamidbar, chapter 22, verse 2. Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Moab became terrified of the people, for they were numerous, and Moab became disgusted because of the children of Israel. Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Now this assembly will eat up everything around us, as the ox eats up the greens of the field." Balak the son of Zippor was king of Moab at the time. He sent messengers to Balaam the son of Beor to Petor, which is by the river of the land of his people, to call for him, saying, "A people has come out of Egypt, and behold, they have covered the eye of the land, and they are stationed opposite me. So now please come and curse this people for me, for they are too powerful for me. Perhaps I will be able to wage war against them, and drive them out of the land. For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed." So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian went, with magic charms in their hands, and they came to Balaam, and conveyed Balak's message to him. He said to them, "Lodge here for the night, and I will give you an answer when the Lord speaks to me." So the Moabite nobles stayed with Balaam. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak, the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, has sent them to me, saying, 'Behold the people coming out of Egypt. A nation has covered the eye of the earth. Come and curse them for me. Perhaps I will be able to fight against them and drive them out." God said to Balaam, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people because they are blessed." All right, so here we have the end of the first portion. So first up, we continue on the previous week's portion. We learn about the conquest that's ongoing throughout the land outside of the Holy Land, and now the people of Moab, particularly their king named Balak, the son of Zippor, is very much concerned because he can tell at a glance there's no way he's going to be able to defeat the Israelites. His only solution is to appeal for some sort of divine intervention. His solution, there is a blessed person named Balaam, who is able to grant blessings and curses. And he believes that Balaam is so powerful in his powers and magics, or whatever he has going on, that he would be able to provide this. Now, Balaam welcomes the guests as they call for him to come and go to Balak. And he says, "Why don't you just stay the night, and we'll see what happens if the Lord speaks to me." So the night begins, and he gets a message directly from God, who asks him, "Who are these people?" And he says back, "Oh, these are the messengers of Balak. And this is what they want me to do. They want me to go with them, and they want me to curse the people of Israel." And God says, "You're not going with them, and you shall not curse them because they're blessed." So this is really amazing. This character, Balaam, is incredible, because of all of the other people we meet, this guy, in his dreams, in the night, and beyond, as we'll learn, he is able to converse with God. Now, Moses, we know, has these sort of dialogues, and we also saw dialogues like this with Abraham. But to see it like this is extreme. And what's further interesting, he is not of the people of Israel, at least as far as I know. So this is a really incredible guy who's from outside of the blessed people of Israel, who has this level of a connection with God. Now, I also think it's important to know that by acknowledging this, we acknowledge that the people of Israel are not the only ones whom God communes with. And this is a very significant thing to learn because, frankly, it opens up an entire world, literally, of possibilities beyond just what goes on in the Holy Land. So in any case, we'll go on to the second portion. Chapter 22, verse 13, Bamidbar. When Balaam arose in the morning, he said to Balak's nobles, "Return to your country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." Moab's nobles arose and came to Balak and said, "Balaam refuses to come with us. So Balak continued to send dignitaries, more and higher in rank than these. They came to Balaam and said to him, "So said Balak, the son of Zippor, please do not hesitate to come to me, for I will honor you greatly, and do whatever you tell me to do. So please come and curse this people for me." Balaam answered and said to Balak's servants, "Even if Balak gives me a house full of silver and gold, I cannot do anything small or great that would transgress the word of the Lord my God. Now you two, please remain here overnight, and I will know what the Lord will continue to speak with me." God came to Balaam at night and said to him, "If these men have come to call for you, arise and go with them, but the word I speak to you, that you shall do." So we have the end of the second portion here. So basically, after the previous conversation he had with the nobles, they get sent back. It's a mission failed. Balak is not satisfied with this, so he sends even more important dignitaries. They speak with Balaam. Balaam says, "Okay, listen, even if I go with you, it won't matter if it's not in accordance to God's will. I only can do what the Lord says. I can only follow his word, okay? So no promises, that's all I can promise. Like nothing beyond that. So anyway, if that's fine, go ahead and stay here the night. We'll see if God talks to me again." So this time it says that God speaks to him and says, "If these men have come to call for you, arise and go with them. But the word I speak to you, that you shall do." So here it's a little bit of a curious situation because now he's saying to go with them, but remember the word I speak to you that you shall do. So he's saying, okay, I'll send you, but you're going to do exactly as I say, and that is the arrangement. I am curious as to why he changed his ruling based on the night before, but it's probably because of what's to follow. So now we move on to the third portion, chapter 22, verse 21 of Bamidbar. In the morning, Balaam arose, saddled his she-donkey, and went with the Moabite dignitaries. God's wrath flared because he was going, and an angel of the Lord stationed himself on the road to thwart him. And he was riding on his she-donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. The she-donkey saw the angel of the Lord stationed on the road with his sword drawn in his hand. So the she-donkey turned aside from the road and went into a field. Balaam beat the she-donkey to get it back onto the road. The angel of the Lord stood in a path of the vineyards, with a fence on this side and a fence on that side. The she-donkey saw the angel of the Lord, and she was pressed against the wall. She pressed Balaam's leg against the wall, and he beat her again. The angel of the Lord continued going ahead, and he stood in a narrow place, where there was no room to turn right or left. The she-donkey saw the angel of the Lord, and it crouched down under Balaam. Balaam's anger flared, and he beat the she-donkey with a stick. The Lord opened the mouth of the she-donkey, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the she-donkey, "For you have humiliated me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The she-donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your she-donkey on which you have ridden since you first started until now? Have I been accustomed to do this to you?" He said, "No." The Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road, with a sword drawn in his hand. He bowed and prostrated himself on his face. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Why have you beaten your she-donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to thwart you, for the one embarking on the journey has hastened against me. When the she-donkey saw me, it turned aside these 3 times. Had she not turned aside before me, now also I would have killed you and spared her." Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing on the road before me. Now, if it displeases you, I will return." The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with these men, but the word I will speak to you, that you shall speak." So Balaam went with Balak's dignitaries. Balak heard that Balaam was coming, so he went out toward him to the city of Moab, which is on the border of Ammon, at the extreme edge of the border. Balak said to Balaam, "Did I not send to you to call for you? Why did you not come to me? Am I indeed incapable of honoring you?" Balaam said to Balak, "Behold, I have come to you. Do I have any power to say anything? The word God puts into my mouth, that I will speak. So there we have the end of the third portion. So, interesting. Very interesting. God tells him in the previous portion, go ahead, but do it exactly as I say. But here we see the donkey, he's riding the donkey, and God's wrath flared because he was going, right? And so the angel of the Lord stations himself. Basically, he's going to kill Balaam. He's ready to kill Balaam, but his donkey has his back. And so it tries to avoid the angel, but ends up causing him to go off of his way, and so he beats it. Then he goes into a wall, thanks to the she-donkey, because she's still dodging this thing that's going to kill her master. And so once again, he beats her. And then finally, when there's no way forward without going into this thing, she just drops to the ground and basically refuses to kill him or go toward this thing that's going to possibly kill both of them. And so he gets real pissed off and hits her repeatedly, at which point God blesses the donkey to speak. Now, at this point, I feel like Balaam should have woken up. Hello, your donkey is talking to you, dude. What are you doing? Are you not stopping and going, wait a minute, you can talk? All these years you've had this donkey, and only now you're talking to it for the first time with speech, and you're not saying, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? So, I think the significance here, and why this is such a profound matter, and why the Lord becomes furious, is because Balaam must have had some kind of an emotional change or influence because of what was being promised to him. You see, we've heard of the idea of being blinded by greed. So why is it that a person who's able to commune with God on such an intense level cannot see the angel of death right in front of him? Why is it that God would suddenly become frustrated with him after first saying, all right, go ahead, go right ahead, but do as I say? But then suddenly, God becomes angry. Why? And I've often wondered about this because I've heard Balak and Balaam both have received punishments, right, from various commentaries. So it's interesting, why is it that Balaam is in trouble here? And I think that must be the reason, because unlike the original verdict, which was, go with them and do exactly as I say, clearly something has influenced his heart or influenced his mind enough that some level of him subconsciously is going to act according to the will of not just the Lord. Otherwise, why would he be blinded to what's going on? Why would the Lord want to punish him? Why would the Lord say, go ahead and do exactly as I say? Suddenly the Lord changes his mind and says, now I'm going to punish this guy? Well, he explicitly says right here in the dialogue, when he's asking, why did you beat this donkey? Behold, I've come out to thwart you, for the one embarking on the journey has hastened against me. Right? So, in other words, the person on the journey, you, Balaam, have hastened against the Lord. In other words, he's not doing as he was supposed to do. And this means that he has had his own sort of personal change of heart or motive or whatever, but now his eyes have been opened, not that they shouldn't have been already, with apparently how blessed this man already was. Now he's learned his lesson. And so, after this, he finally apologizes, or he at least acknowledges, like, I really blew it. And he says, I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing on the road before me. Now, if it displeases you, I will return. So he's even saying, I'll go back. I realize I've made a mistake. I'll turn around. But instead, the angel says, no, go with them, but do exactly as I say, right? So the Lord's through the angel saying, no, you're going to continue exactly as you're doing, but you're going to do only what I tell you. So here we have the revelation that Balaam clearly had a little bit of more than just what to do what was being told. So maybe he had some greed or something inspiring him. That's just entirely interpretation. I've heard negative commentaries or negative statements about Balaam before, so it makes me think there must be something flawed about this guy. But, I mean, this is a good example. Why would he be punished? Clearly, in his heart, in his mind, he was going to do something that was not purely in accordance with whatever God says. So, moving on, he gets to Balak, and Balak says, what's the deal, man? I sent you all these things. What, am I not good enough for you? Am I not able to honor you? What's the deal? And Balaam simply tells him, look, I'm here, but what power do I have? All I can do is just repeat what I'm told by God. Nothing more. Okay? That's all I can do for you. So now he has had the conviction of being, shown, okay, I can't do anything but that. So by surviving this, and the miracle of the donkey, again, this whole moment was meant to give him a lesson not to kill him, right? The donkey saved his life. So ultimately, the word of the Lord may have been, go out there and thwart him, but also we're going to teach him a little lesson. We're going to scare him straight. So on to the fourth portion, chapter 22, verse 39. Balaam went with Balak, and they arrived at Kiryat Huzot, a city of streets. Balak slaughtered cattle and sheep and sent some to Balaam and to the dignitaries with him. And in the morning Balak took Balaam and led him up to Bamoth Baal, and from there he saw part of the people. Chapter 23, verse 1. Balaam said to Balak, "Build me 7 altars here, and prepare for me 7 bulls and 7 rams." Balak did as Balaam had requested, and Balak and Balaam offered up a bull and a ram on each altar. Balaam said to Balak, "Stand beside your burnt offering, and I will go. Perhaps the Lord will happen to appear to me, and he will show me something that I can tell you." And he went alone. God chanced upon Balaam, and he said to him, "I have set up 7 altars, and I have offered up a bull and a ram on each altar." The Lord placed something into Balaam's mouth, and he said, "Return to Balak and say as follows." When he returned, Balak was standing next to his burnt offering, he and all the Moabite dignitaries. He took up his parable and said, "Balak the king of Moab has brought me from Aram, from the mountains of the east, saying, 'Come curse Jacob for me, and come invoke wrath against Israel.' How can I curse whom God has not cursed? And how can I invoke wrath if the Lord has not been angered? For from their beginning I see them as mountain peaks, and I behold them as hills. It is a nation that will dwell alone, and will not be reckoned among the nations. Who counted the dust of Jacob, or the number of 1/4 of, or the seed of Israel? May my soul die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his." Balak said to Balaam, "What have you done to me? I took you to curse my enemies, but you have blessed them." He answered, saying, "What the Lord puts into my mouth, that I must take care to say." So here we have the end of the portion. So, recap, they arrive at Kiryat Huzot, they do Balak slaughters some cattle and sheep, sends to Balaam, and then the next morning they take him to Bamoth Baal, and there he's able to see some of the people of Israel. So he's taking him think of it like he's looking over this giant mass of people. He sees a piece of them in the horizon. And Balaam is now being, prompted, well, go on, do your magic, go on. And so Balaam says, okay, build me 7 altars. We're going to have 7 bull and ram sacrifices, and I'll see what I can do. Okay? We'll see what God says. But that's all I'm going to say. So he does just that. And when he comes back, all he has to say is that basically this people is going to be set apart. They will be totally in their own league, and they're like mountain peaks. They are beheld as hills. They will dwell alone and will not be reckoned among the nations, right? And so, who counted them? May my soul die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his. So basically, what he's saying is, if anything else, right? If not to bless these people, then let me die a righteous man. So it's a very profound blessing to say what's going to happen to them. So you can think of it like this. Before Moab will go to war, he says, we're not going to be able to beat these people. Maybe we'll get a blessing that can change the tide of war. Now, he's being told the blessing is explicitly that these people are special, and once that has been decreed, it's a decree being spoken from God, and then through this seer or prophet or whatever you want to call him. So now he's just put a really significant blessing on them by affirming it with the power of holy words. And so now he's saying, dude, what have you done? I brought you here to curse them, and you did the opposite. And all you can say is, I told you, all I can do is exactly what God says. that's what I'm going to say. If he says bless him, I'm going to repeat the blessing. That's all I can do. This is nothing different from what I told you. I don't know why you're complaining. So now on to the fifth portion, chapter 23, verse 13. Balak said to him, "Come with me to another place from where you will see them. However, you will only see a part of them, not all of them, and curse them for me from there." He took him to the field of the lookouts, to the peak of the mountain, and he built 7 altars and offered up a bull and a ram on each altar. He said to Balak, "Stand here next to your burnt offering, and I will be chanced on here." The Lord chanced upon Balaam and placed something into his mouth. He said, "Return to Balak, so you shall speak." When he came to him, he was standing next to his burnt offering, and the Moabite dignitaries were with him. And Balak said to him, "What did the Lord speak?" He took up his parable and said, "Arise, Balak, and hear, listen closely to me, son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, nor is he a mortal that he should relent. Would he say and not do? Speak and not fulfill? I have received instructions to bless, and he has blessed, and I cannot retract it. He does not look at evil in Jacob, and has seen no perversity in Israel. The Lord his God is with him, and he has the king's friendship. God has brought them out of Egypt with the strength of his loftiness. For there is no divination in Jacob, and no soothsaying in Israel. In time it will be said to Jacob and Israel, What has God wrought? Behold, a people that rises like a lioness, and raises itself like a lion. It does not lie down until it eats its prey, and drinks the blood of the slain. Balak said to Balaam, You shall neither curse them, nor shall you bless them. Balaam answered and said to Balak, Have I not spoken to you, saying, Everything the Lord speaks, that I shall do? And so we are at the end of the fifth portion. So once again, Balak is not learning his lesson here. Balaam has told him, Look, these people are blessed. And if God tells me something, that's what I'm going to say. So he's like, oh, no. How about this? Well, we're going to go over here. We're going to look at them from a different angle, all right? We're going to change the scenery, and you'll give it another go, and it'll be great, all right? Let's try it from over here. Sound good? Great. So they make the other offering, the other 7 and 7, a ram and whatnot, on the altars, and sure enough, even though he's warned him enough times, he's going to go ahead and have to fulfill what's being told here. So what's interesting about this is, both times they make these altar offerings, and these are very sacred things to do, and in doing so, you really will invoke you'll invoke the presence of God, which is why he shows up, right? But also, what provoked a blessing? So these offerings are being made, and, if you could see the offerings as being like the cost of admission for a blessing or a curse, so Balak is basically paying to give God giving God the necessary offering in exchange for a blessing or a curse, and what he's getting is not the one he wants, but he keeps paying the toll, and he's going to keep doing it, right? So now he's getting real mad, and so once again Balaam gets the word from God, and he says, God is not a man that he doesn't lie, he doesn't relent, he's not going to say one thing and not do it, and he's not going to speak and not fulfill what he spoke, right? He is a king, he is the ultimate king among kings, and that king is best friends with Israel. So, unfortunately for you, there's nothing to be done here. He's like a lion and a lioness, there's nothing to be done. These people, and it specifically says, he does not see perversity, right? He does not see soothsayers or divination. These are forbidden practices. And it's very interesting. So, people who try to read the future, people who try to peer into the unknown, right? These sort of things are not present among the people of Israel, and this pleases the Lord very much. So, all in all, it ain't happening. nothing but blessings for these people. So now Balak is like, no, whoa, okay, let's call the whole thing off. Instead, no blessings or curses. We'll just call it quits. We'll call it square. Just don't bless him, don't curse him. We'll just walk away. And Balaam says, I told you, if he says it, I gotta say it. So you can't tell me don't bless them now, because I told you if he says it to me, I have to do it. I have to fulfill the words. I have to speak them. And so that's exactly what happens. Another blessing. Now we go into the sixth portion, chapter 23, verse 27. Balak said to Balaam, come now, I will take you to a different place. Perhaps it will please God, and you will curse them for me there. So Balak took Balaam to the peak of Peor, overlooking the wastelands. Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars here, and prepare for me 7 bulls and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam told him, and offered up a bull and a ram on each altar. Chapter 24, verse 1. Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, so he did not go in search of omens as he had done time and time again, but turned his face toward the desert. Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel dwelling according to its tribes, and the Spirit of God rested upon him. He took up his parable and said, the word of Balaam, the son of Beor, and the word of the man with an open eye, the word of one who hears God's sayings, who sees the vision of the Almighty, fallen, yet with open eyes. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. They extend like streams, like gardens by the river, like aloes which the Lord planted, like cedars by the water. Water will flow from his wells, and his seed shall have abundant water. His king shall be raised over Agag, and his kingship exalted. God, who has brought them out of Egypt with the strength of his loftiness, he shall consume the nations which are his adversaries, bear their bones, and dip his arrows into their blood. He crouches and lies like a lion and like a lioness. Who will dare rouse him? Those who bless you shall be blessed, and those who curse you shall be cursed. Balak's anger flared against Balaam, and he clapped his hands. Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, but you have blessed them these 3 times. Now hurry back to your place. I said I would honor you greatly, but the Lord has deprived you of your honor. Balaam said to Balak, but I even told the messengers you sent to me, saying, if Balak gives me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot transgress the word of the Lord to do either good or evil on my own. Only what the Lord speaks can I speak. And so we reach the end of the 6th portion. So, once again, Balaam is sent to another location because Balak still won't take a hint. So he's basically saying, all right, okay, I know this failed twice in a row, but we're going to try a 3rd time, okay? Let's go try a 3rd location. Maybe this will work. They go to the new location at the peak of Peor, overlooking the wastelands, and once again, build me 7 altars, we make the sacrifices, and at this point, it says, Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, so he did not go in search of omens as he had done time and time again. So, basically, the other times when he made this appeal, he was doing so searching for a weak point, searching for some opportunity to do what he was being hired to do. So even though he was only going to fulfill the word of the Lord, he ultimately was still trying to serve his employer's interests, but he could only do so within the confines of his conditions but it has to be something the Lord says. And so, instead this time, he's not even going to try to look for bad news. Instead, he's not even looking there. What he chooses to do is instead turn toward the desert. Now, as this happens, he sees the people Israel and before it says he only could see part of them, right? But this time, it seems like from the peak, he sees all of them, dwelling according to its tribes. And the Spirit of God rested upon him. And so suddenly, this inspires him to give an incredible blessing, an incredible speech. And he says, of himself, Balaam, the son of Beor, the word of the man with an open eye, right? Because his eyes have been opened. The word of one who hears God's sayings, right? Because he's a prophet, who sees the vision of the Almighty. Huge, huge accolade there. Fallen, yet with open eyes. So again, a reference to the fact that he failed. He's fallen short, literally in the case of with his donkey, yet his eyes are open. He's fallen, but he's awake. And he says, "How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel." And he speaks with such profound love and admiration. He is awestruck. When he looks at the people Israel, it's like everything got put through a filter that was just radiantly sparkly and magnificent. It was holy, it was amazing, it was pleasing to the eye, and the Spirit of God rested on him. And so instead he gives the ultimate blessing. And at this point now, Balak is fuming. He's so mad, he says, "I called you here to do this job, and you've done the total opposite. I offered you all these good things, and you've blown it. Get the hell out of here. I never want to see you again. I said I'd honor you, but the Lord has deprived you of honor. So you're not getting any of that because you obviously can't do what I hired you to do. Your God or whatever is a pain, and now I'm punishing you." But Balaam simply says to him, "My man, I told your messengers day one, or day two, even if you gave me tons of riches, I could still only do what I can do, which is to repeat the word of the Lord. That's it." So now, that's the end of the sixth portion. So Balaam is sent back essentially empty-handed, but with the enriching experience of this entire ordeal and having been used now by the Lord as a way to bless the people rather than curse them. And indeed, in doing so, he has pleased the Lord surely. So this entire affair is very interesting because, as I mentioned before, this whole thing implies that Balaam is quite a powerful individual. The fact that he has such a regular ability to consort with the Lord and have open discussion and back and forth, and that they're able to commune with one another, he is pretty darn powerful. I've even some say if he was on the good guy's side, he'd be stronger than Moses, even greater than Moses. But, he was corruptible to a degree. That's why this whole situation ended up happening. But in any case, we'll now go ahead and move on to the seventh portion. But it's incredible, really, to see what a person can be, no matter what their background. The chosen are chosen. Seventh portion, chapter 24 of Bamidbar, verse 14. "And now I am going to my people. Come, I will advise you what this people will do to your people at the end of days." He took up his parable and said, "The word of Balaam, son of Beor, the word of a man with an open eye, the word of one who hears God's sayings and perceives the thoughts of the Most High, one who sees the vision of the Almighty, fallen with open eyes. I see it, but not now. I behold it, but not soon. A star has gone forth from Jacob, and a staff will arise from Israel, which will crush the princes of Moab, and uproot all the sons of Seth. Edom shall be possessed, and Seir shall become the possession of his enemies, and Israel shall triumph. A ruler shall come out of Jacob, and destroy the remnant of the city." When he saw Amalek, he took up his parable and said, "Amalek was the first of the nations, and his fate shall be everlasting destruction." When he saw the Kenite, he took up his parable and said, "How firm is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in a cliff? For if Cain is laid waste, how far will Assyria take you captive?" He took up his parable and said, "Alas, who can survive these things from God? Ships will come from the Kittites, and afflict Assyria, and afflict those on the other side, but he too will perish forever." Balaam arose, went, and returned home, and Balak went on his way. Chapter 25, verse 1. Israel settled in Shittim, And the people began to commit harlotry with the daughters of the Moabites. They invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and prostrated themselves to their gods. Israel became attached to Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord flared against Israel. The Lord said to Moses, "Take all the leaders of the people and hang them before the Lord, facing the sun, and then the flaring anger of the Lord will be removed from Israel." Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Each of you shall kill the men who became attached to Baal Peor." Then an Israelite man came and brought the Midianite woman to his brethren, before the eyes of Moses and before the eyes of the entire congregation of the children of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the Cohen, saw this, arose from the congregation, and took a spear in his hand. He went after the Israelite man into the chamber, and drove it through the both of them, the Israelite man and the woman through her stomach, and the plague ceased from the children of Israel. Those that died in the plague numbered 24,000. Thus concludes verse or portion 7. So another recap. So I mentioned before that Balak and Balaam wrapped up their business and he sent him home empty-handed, but I spoke a little too soon because Balaam still did a little bit of advising. He did something here. So he didn't just leave, and indeed, maybe this is also something he was not commanded to do, so a little tricky here. So he's basically saying, look, this is what I know. You didn't get what you wanted, but here's what I can tell you. So here's what I, Balaam, have seen. And he starts describing how Jacob is going to basically smite everyone. And he starts basically knocking down all the major countries by name. Like in the Amalekites, they're done for. And the Kenites, come on, you're done for too. You're going to be taken prisoner by Assyrians. And you, they're all done for. And then after this, the Assyrians and the Hittites, they're going to fight each other, and they're all going to perish. So it's going to be over. Nonetheless, this is how it ends, and they go their separate ways. Now, after this, we have chapter 25, where the people settle in Shittim, and they begin to commit harlotry with the daughters of the Moabites. So this is where things get interesting, right? I mentioned before that I've heard a lot of people heavily criticize Balaam, but at a glance, he hasn't actually done anything, right? All he did was share the word of the Lord and bless the people, right? And he didn't tell them any weak points. He told them all their strengths. There are no soothsayers. And on top of that, there are also no people practicing divination. Another big win. And what was that third thing he said? The very first one? What was it? Something along the lines of there is no perversity in Israel. Interesting. So, this is a clue. This is a clue. If they pay close attention, they can put two and two together. So what you're saying is, they're not in trouble with the Lord because they're not sinning. So what if we make them sin? That must be the correlation here. Because what ends up happening, in the 7th portion, as we get into the next chapter, these people who were just described as having no evil in the eyes of God, right now they're all very good. Suddenly they're committing harlotry with the daughters of the Moabites. Well, how is this happening? Who is responsible for this entire thing? Who's the portion named after? Balak, the king of Moab. And so this may have very well been an intentional attack. In other words, I can't defeat them because they're blessed, because their eyes of the Lord see them and he pleases them. So what if I maybe provide an opportunity for that blessing to go away? And there we see the women of the Moabites are now intermingling, and they're leading them astray. They're leading them to Baal Peor, right? So this is a consequence that's very severe, and it causes the people to weep because Moses is telling the judges, look, the people who became attached to Baal Peor, they need to be killed. There's no two ways about it. Like they've crossed over into worshiping another god. That can't stand. This is the only thing that can be done. They got to be taken out because the Lord is now retaliating for this. So in other words, Balak found a winning strategy. Very good. it turns out that his entire ruling wasn't so bad after all. He got that clue that could lead to this. So now Moses has to respond. They have to basically treat it like an infection, and they start killing off the people. And then as this is going on, the people are overwhelmed, and as they're all weeping at the tent of meeting, an Israelite comes with a Midianite woman, and Phinehas sees this, and so he basically pursues them. And it almost seems, him saying that it happened in the chamber, almost makes me think that they were dashing for the Holy of Holies, right? So maybe they're trying to enter a place that's only for the Kohanim. And if they were doing so, this could have had drastic consequences. But nonetheless, Phinehas acted quickly, and he killed them on the spot. And as soon as they died, it was over. So trying to put the pieces together here, why would that end the plague? Was she the one at the top of the food chain here? Was she the head of this whole entire movement? What would inspire an Israelite man to run like this? Well, maybe that was entirely her job. She was meant to lead them astray. And if the holiest dwelling of the Lord can be desanctified, it can be desecrated, they're going to lose even more of that divine protection, which might change the decree of their future. So that maybe is why. And so as soon as Phinehas kills her and her Israelite collaborator or whatever, the plague is over. 24,000 are killed because of this. Nonetheless, crisis was averted, but we see the direct consequences. It may not seem obvious at a glance, but perhaps this is a cause and effect of Balak and Balaam that results in a sudden outbreak of paganism and heresy that leads to the death of 24,000 Israelites. So there we are at the end of this week's portion, Parashat Balak. Easily one of my favorite we've ever gone over in this show. I really enjoyed it, and I find it so fascinating because, again, the power for God to connect with a person is not exclusive to the people of Israel. Balaam was not an Israelite. He was not of Jacob, and yet he is moved and blessed by God to be able to hear from God. He's recognized and known by people in the area. This is a guy who has a direct audience. We should appeal to him. So very, very powerful stuff. Very, very incredible stuff, honestly. This is amazing. But nonetheless, that concludes this week's Torah portion. So remember, even when you're giving good news, sometimes people can use that good news to extrapolate a weakness or bad news, right? You can inadvertently, by talking about a thing that's great about somebody, expose the fact that that's what makes them vulnerable. So always be cautious when you're talking, even if you're doing good things. Sometimes those kind words can be the very thing that leads to someone's downfall, or otherwise. In any case, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this educational. I certainly did, and I had a great time reading it. Until next time, this is Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast, and as always, Baruch Hashem.